The Unifi 2.0 loudspeakers have been one of my favorite affordable speakers to recommend over the past year, and I've been very curious as to what improvements the Unifi reference were going to bring to the table. Of course, we see a better looking loudspeaker and classy looking matte black aluminum drivers, but setting that to the side, what I want to know is how do these guys sound? And more important, do they outperform the Unifi 2.0s that I love so much? And with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, that is exactly what we are going to find out. For those who have been trekking with NRD over the last month or so, you already know that we recently uprooted and moved to Texas. One thing worth mentioning right out of the gate is my new listening room is not complete, and I'm still getting used to how it sounds. I have mentioned this many times on my channel, and it bears repeating. The room is paramount when it comes to high fidelity playback, and being upfront, I'm not 100% certain I can walk through this review as well as I might be able to once I have all of my treatments sorted out and have a better understanding as to what is going on in this room. The UFR52s are rated at 6 ohms and are 86 dB sensitive, similar to what we saw in the UF52 towers, yet 1 more decibel more sensitive. I'm pleased to report that while flea watt amplifiers won't bring the thunder, I had little to no trouble waking these up with solid state ranging from 50 watts and up. I even tried some tubes with the UFR52s, and even in triode mode, these monoblocks from Zacharias Devices had 0 issues manhandling the Elacs. Because we are dealing with a linear loudspeaker, and I'll explain this when we get to the measurements, these really pair well with just about anything that you throw at them. Being a little cleaner in response than the 2.0s, I'd imagine anything from a lively sounding Yamaha all the way to a smoother sounding Cambridge will work great, and I believe these speakers will let you move around and explore a lot of different gear without much of the consequence from the voicing of the speaker. What I hear in the top end extension of the UFR52s overall reminds me of what I heard in the original 2.0s, but does indeed sound a little more relaxed with all things air and extension. After listening to the UFR52s, I did take measurements that show a drop in the response starting around 15K, and when I mentioned this to Andrew, he was curious about the calibration of my microphones. Lucky for us, I actually have a couple identical mics for Clio, and after trying them all, the response remained the same. What this indicates is a few different possibilities. Number 1, my mics aren't telling me the truth. Number 2, there are other variables at play, such as operator error, which is unlikely, environment, and weather, which is possible, and a long list of other things. As for the third and final possibility, well, maybe, just maybe, there is indeed a drop in the response. Granted, I didn't hear a drastic hit in the time domain or spatial cues. It does sound slightly more relaxed, so for those who found the 2.0s to be a little zippy way up top, this is good news. For those who loved the air and extension of the 2.0s, this is simply a heads up as to what I found throughout the review process. As we move into mid-range, I was curious if I'd be able to clearly hear the results of the improved drivers in the UFR52s. At the same time, it's important to note, the reference series includes refined bracing techniques, and combined, I'd expect that we have an even cleaner and more clear mid-band. While it's not anything that I would describe as night and day, I am confident that all vocal content, whether it's male baritones or female sopranos, does indeed sound a little cleaner with the UFR52 than the older 2.0s. It's difficult to say if I might be hearing a slight shift in the network voicing, but in the end, it is indeed an improvement worth chatting about. With both the UB52 and UF52, I felt those speakers presented vocals without an ounce of bloom or coloration. With the UFR52s, I feel the same in that the vocals are presented with honesty. Mark Knopfler sounds like Mark Knopfler, and Barry White sounds like Barry White. Simple as that, folks. While I think Andrew did a great job with the bracing on the original 2.0s given his budget, The reference series does indeed move into the lead with all things mid-bass and bass clarity, and it's harder to hear any kind of box colorations just as it was with the 2.0s. Testing out bass drops from Nenad Vesalik's Bass Room, this track will quickly rattle the snot out of any box speaker and light up the side panels that aren't properly braced. While I can still tell that the bass is indeed coming from a box with the UFR52s, it's difficult to say if I can hear any kind of resonances that are also coming from the box. And this, folks, is a good, if not a great thing. As most that follow me know, I'm a huge fan of open baffle loudspeakers for this very reason, but at the same time, I can surely get behind a properly braced box speaker, and the UFR52 fits into that category. At no point did I hear any kind of rattles, well farts, or panels wanting to fall apart, so in the end, we got solid bass performance from these guys, no doubt about it. One of the things that I mentioned in the 2.0 review is the reason concentric drivers are so incredible when they are done well is they have the ability to place holographic images front and center. With proper placement, you can close your eyes and you have nothing but a realistic performance in front of you. The singer steps up to the microphone and without question, you will have a clear center image, and even more, it will sound holographic and convincingly lifelike. All my measurements were taken using my Clio Pocket measurement system and a hydraulic cart, which I use to lift up the speaker. I use a long copper tube to extend the microphone about a meter away to avoid any disruptions from the microphone stand and arms. Taking a look, the on-axis response looks to be within 2 to 2.5 decibels from tip to tip. In other words, my reference level of amplitude is 85 dB, and at no point does a peak or valley extend past 2.5 decibels from either direction of the 85 dB. As I noted earlier, my measurements do show a bit of a drop after 15K. Doing a side-by-side comparison of the original 2.0s measured using the same gear show about a 3 decibel difference from 15K and beyond. Now, unlike some other knuckleheads out there sharing charts, graphs, and measurements and coming up with sharp, condescending conclusions without investigating, I'm going to continue looking into this and see if I'm wrong. And if my measurements are wrong and this needs to be updated, I will be the first to do it. Why? Because it's the right way to approach data. That is why. In regards to the off-axis performance, just like we saw in the 2.0s, both the horizontal and vertical looks tack sharp with clean and tight followays. Yes, folks, these things are important to know, and what it tells us is in many different rooms and environments, we can now predict how the UFR52s are going to perform. What bounces off the walls, the ceiling, and the floor is a late arrival that makes up the completed puzzle of hi-fi. And when those pieces match or come close to the direct sound, that puzzle fits nicely together as it makes its way to our listening chair. Measurements matter, folks, no doubt about it. Elac has these spec'd with a frequency response of 40 Hz to 35K. From my listening position using LOTS, which is loudspeaker optimization techniques for soundstage, I have these towers rolling off in room between 45 and 50 Hz. Now, it needs to be mentioned that I, Ron from New Record Day, I'm crazy. That's right, bona fide nutso. I pull speakers deep into the room for good reasons that are all outlined in the LOTS video. Does this mean Andrew is lying when he spec'd these at 40 Hz? No, it just means that you need the help of boundary reinforcement to get there. Trying the towers around 2 feet away from the front wall, I was able to get some lift in bass, and hitting the spec 40 Hz certainly wasn't hard to do. Last, the waterfall looks clean with only a couple little legs popping out, but overall, nothing in this stands out as a concern or something worth chatting about for the next 10 minutes. Also, the impedance looks pretty clean in terms of resonances, which I do not see. So for those that are concerned with Eva Cassidy performances, or anything else for that matter, I have a feeling you're gonna be just fine. What can I say here, folks? With the Uni-Fi 2.0, I said Andrew was hitting his stride, and with the refinements heard in the Uni-Fi reference, He's now taken the lead in affordable hi-fi. As for my findings with the top end, I do wish these offered a little more air and extension, but you know what? With every other improvement heard over the 2.0s, these are an easy recommendation. As Randy the Cheap Audio Man mentioned in his review, the bar is set and it's set rather high. Well done, Andrew and Team Elac. Now do us all a favor. Stop messing around with salsa that tastes like ketchup and make the best speaker you can under $5,000. We will be patiently waiting.